Good evening, everyone. It's Thursday, 18th day streaming here on Twitch. I'm going to be honest, physically, I'm feeling not so much. It was a hot day at the shop. But spiritually, mentally, I'm ready to make the best of it. Tonight, I've got a special stream. I'm a little too brain dead to work on the... Oh, thanks for the follow, Hazel. You're in for a wild ride because tonight I'm going to be telling some stories from my book. It is a short story book about things that actually happened. It's my take on a bit of gonzo journaling in the sort of in the style inspired by Hunter S. Thompson. Some of them happened more recently, but a lot of them happened a long time ago. And so what happens here on Twitch stays here on Twitch, hopefully. I'm going to do a little bit of mining, but I'm going to tell you guys some wild tales. So stay a while and listen, as the great Deckard Cain would say. And I'm going to try and look at chat on my phone a little bit, but I also have to look at the titles, notes for my stories. So let's see. Let's start out with a banger. Let's go with the Giga Skunk. All right, so this is the tale of the Giga Skunk. A long time ago, I used to have a notorious party house known as the Bone Zone, and I would throw absolutely ridiculous parties. And I think this particular party was a New Year's Eve party, probably around 15 years ago. Let me jump over to the chat so I can kind of follow along. Bear with me one moment. So yeah, it was New Year's Eve. Oh, I got sound on my phone. Hang on. It was New Year's Eve, and there was a young lad by the name of Rory. He was the guest of one of my friends. He had never been to my house before, and we were proceeding to get decently fucked up on many a thing. And we tell him about how there is a giga skunk that lives under the porch. And you might be asking yourself, what is a giga skunk? It is a skunk of unusual size. Like, you've heard of rodents of unusual size? This was a skunk of unusual size. Like, we're talking like as big, if not bigger, than a badger. And Rory did not believe us. He didn't know me very well. He didn't know that I'm not the type of person that, just says things, just makes shit up, and then, uses it as a cheap attempt at humor. I would much rather prefer to just tell you something that's actually true. Oh, sweet. We're getting a call. 1 second. Bear with me. Hey, man. I was just in the middle of doing story time on the stream. I don't know if you're into that right now. I tried to call you after work, but it wasn't the right time. Yeah. I was actually, so I don't know if you ever heard this story, but I was about to tell the story about the Giga Skunk. Did I ever tell you about the Giga Skunk?
I don't think so.
All right, so if it's all right with whoever's watching or replaying, I'm just going to roll it back like 30 seconds. So a long time ago, back when I had my notorious party house, there was a New Year's Eve party. And everybody was required to dress up really fancy. I remember that. It was like Christmas and New Year's. The apartment was very not fancy, and what we were doing was very not fancy. But we dressed up and we LARPed as fancy for the occasion. But on this such occasion, to kind of keep it to the Giga Skunk, there was a young lad by the name of Rory who was invited by one of my friends. I had never met them before. I believe he was like a senior in high school, and in the middle of the night, we start telling him about how there's this very large creature that lives under our porch called a giga skunk. And the reason why my roommate Dalton and I came up with the title of Giga Skunk was this thing was probably like 3 or 4 times bigger than what you would expect a skunk to be. It was more on par with like a badger. And it was ridiculous. It was almost like as wide as my shoulders was its shoulders, and it looked like a very large dog. It was ridiculous. And Rory did not believe us. He didn't know us. We were strangers, and he thought that I might be one of those people that just likes to make things up and use it as a cheap attempt at humor. But I actually much rather prefer to tell things that are based in reality and then, rely on that on its own to be funny. So he's arguing back and forth with us about, how we're just lying to him. And I'm like, I promise I would not lie to you about a giant creature living under my porch. He's like, it just sounds like the illest lie. So finally, he gets up the gumption that this is probably after midnight, he's going to crawl under the porch to prove me wrong. And I try to warn him, but at the same time, I'm like, my thought process is like, I'm like, you're an 18-year-old young man. If you need to explore the dark dungeon of the Giga Skunk, then that's what you need to do. I'm not your mom. I'm not gonna stop you if that's what you need to do. But I said, you're not gonna like it. And he said, you guys are full of shit. And he proceeds to crawl. We're all outside observing from the driveway. And he proceeds to crawl under the porch. And as expected, he lets out this like blood-curdling shriek of terror. And we hear the growling of the skunk. Now, normally skunks are kind of timid, but because I had this creature living under my porch, I did some research on skunks. They're similar to snakes in that they grow to the size of their environment. And once they get big enough, they're not really timid anymore. And at about the same time, we had a issue with an overpopulation of stray cats. And once a skunk gets big enough, it will eat stray cats. And so my theory was this thing had grown to an unusual size because of the plentiful supply of stray cats. Try and get back over here on the right page. So anyway, we got the blood-curdling scream of Rory, and he gets attacked. I need to actually get out of that. I don't want sound coming out of both. I want to hear you, but I don't want to hear myself. He gets attacked by the growling Giga Skunk, and it like bit him, it scratched him, and he's crawling face first, like an army crawl under this porch, and he gets thrashed, like a Pokemon using thrash. And he didn't get seriously hurt. He didn't like lose any eyes or get any like really like deep cuts. It was all kind of superficial. It kind of scared him more than anything. But he crawled out of there, and he was really just speechless. And obviously people were laughing and such. But I was like, when someone tells you there is a beast living under your porch, maybe it's not worth proving them wrong to go down there, right? It's like that's the gamble. It's like, is proving yourself right so worth it? Because it's like you only have two outcomes. Either he's right, and you're like, okay, that's cool, or right, like, or he's wrong, and I can just think that he's a dipshit and go on with my life. But he chose option C, like I am going to like brave the depths. And that's very, very human, especially very male human, to brave the depths just to prove a point. And it was for sure a real thing. A little side note to the Giga Skunk was it's like sometimes he would just hang out in front of the porch, like kind of sunbathing or maybe just staking out for cats. And if I was walking towards my porch, it would growl at me, to threaten me. And the way it works is, I would just take another lap around town. I would just be like, he claimed the porch, like it's not my turn. Yeah, bro found out, exactly. So I knew this. I learned how to coexist with the Giga Skunk. You know, he never sprayed. That's the other thing is a small skunk will spray, but a Giga Skunk never sprayed. I lived with it for years, and he never sprayed, but he would protect his territory. Hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. Hope you're enjoying the story. I hope you came in at a close enough time to hear. For some reason, my web page is saying that I'm offline. That I can't be though if I just got a follow, right? Oh, and we fell into the ghost category. So this is a known bug on Twitch. I can't believe I got a follow while I was in the ghost category. Thank you very much for the follow. We're gonna get back in the right category so we can get some more people in here. So yeah, brother. What'd you think of the Giga Skunk?
I love that story, bro. And I think it's insanely perceptive of you to point out how human that response was.
Yeah, man.
That, that is our MO right
Yes.
there. We are willing to die on a hill of being right instead of just letting things fall as they are, you know?
Yes.
Let
Yes.
the chips fall where they may. And it's like, you know, comparatively, you got out of that experience a great story, right?
Yep.
But comparatively, imagine if you had been like, no, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to convince it. Like, you would have been tense in a situation. You could have been totally calm and just enjoying a nice story, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
And so just chef's kiss. Mwah.
Now, I will say there does come a time to actually stop a young man. I'm going to spiral out to one of the untitled stories. It was one of my last outages on the road because for those just listening in, I spent 16 years traveling, working in nuclear plants. And on this one particular day, I had this young man, again, 18 years old, first day in the power plant, and they tell me to give him a tour of the annulus, which sounds really fancy, but imagine like the 1980s Donkey Kong, where it's just like girders and like ladders and stuff, and you're just kind of going vertical. It's very narrow. It feels like a 2D space. And, it goes for about 200 feet up. It's like you're playing Donkey Kong in real life, but it's like, like 200 feet tall. And we get about halfway up, and I notice that this young man is putting on chapstick. And I coach him. I'm like, hey man, like you can't be doing anything with your mouth in here, because it's contaminated. We can't be doing gum, food, drinks, chapstick, anything. And he goes to put it away, and he slips, and the chapstick falls onto an air duct about 5 feet down from the platform. Now, past that air duct is probably like a 150-foot drop-off to just raw steel. Nothing to cushion your fall whatsoever. It's just pure death. And he starts to motion like he's going to... We have guardrails, right? And he starts to motion like he's going to bend through the guardrails. And he's going to step out from the platform down onto this air duct. And I grab him by the shirt and I pull him back, and he says, hey, what's the big idea? What are you doing? And I said, you cannot step on that air duct. And he said, why? And I said, that air duct will not support your weight. It won't even, it's made out of aluminum. It will barely support a 40-pound lead blanket, let alone, a 150 to 200-pound male. It's not going to work. And he thinks I'm being an asshole. He's like, first you tell me the chapstick, now you're telling me I can't pick it up. I said, you can't do it. I won't let you. And he said, but it's litter. And that's when I lost it. I lost my cool, and I said, this whole goddamn plant is litter. You're not going to die to pick up a piece of trash. I'm not going to let you. I said, I'll be forever known as the guy that killed a new guy on a tour. And I just won't let you do it. And he's like, oh, so you think you can just stop me? Now it becomes, kind of like fighting words. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm older than you and I'm bigger than you, and I'm absolutely not going to let you step off this ledge and kill yourself. I will actually physically restrain you. And when he saw that I was serious, like, I will actually, like, this is it. This is the line in the sand. If you try to step off this platform again, I'm going to wrestle you. You know, not because I don't like you, but because I actually just don't want you to die. And once he realized like I was cold ass serious, he let it go. Uh, so yeah, how about you? Well, Zara Fox, I was having a pretty rough day. It was very hot at the office. So I was like, man, I'm gonna have to do some chill mining. And I was like, that doesn't really make for good content. So I decided I would spice things up, partially as a way to like keep myself awake, but also to have a little bit of fun and try and just, you know, tell a little bit of my short stories from my book. So that's what we're doing. Nice chill mining. We're gonna get on a goat and go to my favorite mining spot right now. We're gonna set up there and I'm gonna tell another story. It'll only take about a minute for me to get to this mine. Just follow this green road. So that's what we're going to do. That one, I mean, on a spicy scale, that one's probably only like a 1. You know, we started out kind of light. I can do more, but that's just kind of like a warm up. So once I get set up in the mine, I might just, you know, hit you guys with an absolute face melter. So we're just gonna leave the goat outside. He'll be there when we come back. The mounts are immune to damage, so he won't die out there. We just take out this big old wagon and we start hitting rocks and we go to the next story. Alright, perfect. I can relax once I'm gaining XP. it's a judo reversal. All right, so let's get back into the notes. Let's fish one out. All right. Do you guys want to hear a story? Oh, just followed you on X, and I would really appreciate it if you could give me a follow back. All right, sure. Let me pause and do that. You're not a Fed, right? If you are, I'm friendly with Feds too. You know, everyone's allowed at the picnic. I'm being facetious. All right. You are a real person though, not like a robot, right? I talk to a lot of robots these days. If you're a robot, still talk. You should just probably disclose if you're a robot. All right. There you go. So we're going to tell a Mortal Kombat story. So back in the days when I had my crazy apartment, there were a lot of guys in my local area that were into bare knuckle boxing, like pit fighting, usually accompanied with some like low stakes gambling, you know, as you do in like kind of low income, sort of impoverished areas. You know, you'll see these little fight clubs pop up, and I was kind of intrigued by it, not because I was much of a bare knuckle boxer, but I just kind of like, you know, enjoy events, especially events that are kind of outside of the box. So I decided to organize my own fighting pit, and the way I wanted to set it up, I was kind of inspired by the old 90s Mortal Kombat film. And so out on the lawn of my apartment building, this wasn't even my house, this is an apartment building right in the middle of town, I built a ring of fire, and I invited fighters to come to my Mortal Kombat to fight for cash and kudos. And I got a pretty decent turnout. I can't remember how many times I did it, but it was at least 3 or 4 times. It was over the course of one summer. And I'll tell you the reason why we had to stop was at one point there was a torch, like a tiki torch, and there was also like a circle of fire that we used some kind of fuel to like make a circle of fire. But there was also a tiki torch somewhere, and we had this match that emulated, if you're familiar with the movie, Johnny Cage versus Goro. My roommate was very large, like Goro, and then there was my buddy Tyler, who was kind of like the flashy cool guy. So he kind of emulated Johnny Cage, and Dalton was probably at least 2 to 2.5 times heavier. So we weren't doing weight classes. But right before the match, Tyler lets me know, because I'm like, hey man, you don't have to do this. You're probably going to get squished. And he said, no, it's okay. Not that long ago, I was the state wrestling champion. I mean, he's probably like 140 soaking wet, maybe 150. Dalton's well over 200, right? Probably 300, I don't know. Something like that, some large number. And so I said, you don't have to do this. He said, I'm champion wrestler. And I said, oh, that's a plot twist. So a lot of people were actually betting against Tyler, and this was like a Pete Rose moment. I dropped a bet on Tyler, kind of having my insider trading information. And the way that the match went, first of all, I was the officiator. Is that even a word? The official, the referee, the organizer, we'll say, for lack of a better term. And I was dressed in nothing but a neon-colored grass skirt, and I had a giant plastic dinosaur bone with LED lights fixed up inside of it. And I would thrash my bone forward and just yell, fight. And as soon as I said the word fight, all right, we're out of energy. We got to eat a fish. All right, as soon as I said fight, the Johnny Cage type, Tyler, bull rushed the Goro type, Dalton, lifted him up and threw him clear out of the ring of fire, which, by the way, if you play fighting games, a ring out is a way to win. So he just went straight for the ring out, turn one, and he throws this massive human being through the fire and the flames, where he bumps into a tiki torch. The bottle of fuel that sits in the cup at the top went sailing through the air towards my neighbor's propane tank and just bounced off the side of it. And we all just kind of stopped and, gasped, like, are we about to blow up this building? And luckily, that's not really how the physics played out. None of us were really sure. And I kind of canceled all the games after that for fear of blowing up my neighbors. So, it was a decently good reason. But honestly, that whole story is just the setup for what is actually the funny part, which is that the very next day I was having breakfast at a local coffee shop, and there was these two girls behind the counter talking amongst each other as I'm waiting in line, and they're making coffee, and the one girl says to the other, "You'll never believe what I saw last night." She goes, "What'd you see?" She was like, "I was walking my dog, and I saw people fighting inside of a ring of fire." And she's like, "Oh, what are you talking about? Like, where was this?" She's like, "Right on Atkinson Street, like right in the middle of town." And then by this point, I'm coming up to the counter, and I'm kind of enjoying it a little bit. And then they're like, "Hey, what can I get you?" And I was like, "So the thing is, that was actually me. Like, that was my house." And they're like, "What?" Now they feel so, feel kind of awkward talking about it. I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, we were trying to be ridiculous, so it's fine to think that it was strange. We like fully knew that it was strange, but that was my favorite part, was catching people talking about it the next day. So, one detail that I missed was that I just had like a stereo outside, like blasting the soundtrack to Mortal Kombat on loop. So there it is.
Wow.
Yeah. The
Um,
fighters didn't just look like MK fighters. We also had the soundtrack for the full production value. So
and I guess I just want to add anything for anyone that listens to this because in a way, like whether you believe Sean's stories or you don't, like you can pretty much filter yourselves. But if there's a part of you that's doubting some of Sean's stories, I feel like I want to share that you don't know Sean, and that's why you think he might be lying. Because I got a great analogy. Quick story for me.
let's go. Let's hear it.
um, there's this game, LA Noir, and I've never really played a lot of different types of games. But I got it at GameStop used, and I was like, I'm gonna beat this, and it's gonna be fun. And I get this game, and you're like some cop, and there's bad guys, and it's set in like this 1920s or I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's
Uh,
20s or 30s Hollywood. Yeah.
yeah, and in the and I've never played a game like this at all, so I have no prior experience. But I show up to the game, and they're like making you like be a detective, and so like in my head I'm thinking, well, I'm gonna need to like go on some website that's got cheat codes and like get the answers right, because like this is how us like you know late 80s kids think. It's like get the cheat codes.
Tips and tricks, baby.
Tips and tricks, I gotta have it.
That's right.
So I start playing this thing, and it's just not like it wasn't easily accessible, like all the codes. So I start like watching to try to like just kind of get through the levels or whatever. And all of a sudden, in these like dialogues, because I don't know anything about being a detective, so I'm like trying to like I'm really scratching my brain like a high school algebra test, like trying to remember what the fuck to do with the numbers. And and then all of a sudden, it like lets you choose from four options, and one of the options is like dot dot dot, like don't say anything.
Yeah.
And I like never considered this ever. The idea that like you just don't respond in a conversation, like stop trying to stick your beak in and like get things from people, whether it be like approval or attention or like look like a certain type of person based on that interaction. Like your ego just does not participate in the drama of life. And the most amazing thing happened in this game when you just hit dot dot dot. Like I don't respond. Like the fucking criminal would just like give himself away.
Amazing.
And it's like that's real life. Like if you haven't seen anything crazy, it's because you don't give people enough space to make them be crazy first.
That's right. That's right.
You know? And if you just paused a moment, people would reveal themselves. And they are nuts. Every fucking single one of them.
Yeah.
They're nuts.
That's what I find too. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great,
That's,
great story. Yeah, back when I was working in the nuclear plants, and sometimes, you have to sit in this really dungeness area. You're wearing a suit, it's hot, it's dirty, and you got to sit sometimes and wait for somebody for hours. And sometimes if you're lucky, you're waiting with another person. And so this game I used to play when I'm sitting there with a stranger is I'd ask them, what's the most bizarre thing that you've ever seen? And I'd say, I'm not going to tell anybody. I mean, I'm telling you guys, but not any coworkers that would actually like know their identity. I was just like, we can talk about anything down here in this dungeon. It doesn't count. And you'd get some real crazy stuff. Just about everyone's seen something that would blow your hair back. And that was a fun game to play. I'm gonna get a little dark for a second. I'll tell you the wildest one I ever heard while I was playing this game. It was a man from Boston, and he prefaces his story by saying that, yeah, I'm a nuclear engineer, got A's in college, and I'm got the big nuclear job. He said, but I live in Boston. I commute from Boston. It was maybe like a 30, 40-minute commute to the seacoast. We were at Seabrook. And he said, in my spare time, I'm a street racer. And he's like full bore. He's like, I make a lot of money at this job and I blow it all on street racing. A lot of times crashing or getting in trouble. And I was like, interesting, okay. So this is already a decently extreme person. Probably more extreme than me. He's like actually doing like Fast and the Furious, and he's talking about full bore, like sometimes race for pinks, sometimes race through traffic, the whole 9 yards. He was in a street racing gang, and but he said that's all just kind of like the setup, right? This is just kind of like what he's up to in his spare time, but it's not really the subject of the story. So, this is all to say he hung with some pretty extreme people. His friends, I think he said that they were like, his frat brothers, all kind of mainly got into investment banking. He was like the lone engineer. And so they ended up working for big firms like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan were some of the ones he mentioned. The big league stockbrokers. And those people, if you've seen anything, they're like the craziest people there is, basically. Wall Street. And so he's kind of hanging out with these people because they're also into street racing. And, sort of like one night after a bit of racing, they ask him, hey, do you want to see something crazy? And he was kind of like, sure, I mean. But up until this point, this is all to say, like, something kind of crazy was, for him, was like racing or maybe like a party or something. So, he can't really fathom what's going to come next. And so they take him on this adventure in the middle of the night where I'll try to remember as many of the key details as possible, but it's kind of like a scavenger hunt where he goes to like a bar and they get a password from the bartender after saying something, and then they go to another place and that guy tells them a color, and he tells them, well, now we have to go to this electronics store and buy this particular color of light, and then once we have this light, we go to this one place and we flash it at this one place and it gives us an address and da 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 da. But you get my point. I know it involved buying a unique colored light and doing passwords and moving locations around the city. And they finally arrive at this skyscraper that belongs to this corporation that apparently, supposedly, sells silverware, maybe a few other things. But their stock is like blasting off like it's Apple or something, right? But they're just flying under the radar because who follows a corporation that makes silverware? And he goes inside the building, and much to his surprise, it is a human slave market. I guess like the Wall Street people thought that he was ready for it. Maybe they thought after X amount of hours of street racing, that they were ready to introduce him to the human slave market. But at this point, he is not into this, and he's kind of like shitting bricks because he doesn't, due to the social implications, like he's trying to just like play it cool. But he was absolutely terrified, disgusted, all these things. And the Wall Street guys, he said it was like they were just browsing through Target, like no big deal. And he said the craziest part about the whole thing was that what he noticed was like the average price of a person was like $20,000, like cheaper than most new cars, most all. And he said that is the most bizarre thing I ever saw. And he said after I left that night, he was like, I stopped hanging out with those people I found different people to race with. So, uh, yeah. So for anyone that thinks that that's, that I know it's kind of a sensitive subject, but like, I do think it's important to, share what little kind of knowledge I have that it is real. It's not just, something that it's not like a cooked up conspiracy theory. I really do believe, like, when Sound of Freedom says America's the number one uh, market for human slaves, and that it's way worse than it's ever been in history as far as quantity. I think that that's real, and I think it's kind of important for people to know it's real, because I know a lot of people, for whatever reason, that think that it's not real because they don't see it. But
Yeah.
so yeah, crazy thing to witness. I've definitely never seen any. I've seen a lot of shit, but I've never seen anything that bad.
Yeah.
But
Well, now I know why people. Another reason why people might disbelieve your story, Sean. Denial.
yeah, because
They say that
a
guy's
lot of
so full
times
of shit.
you would literally have to readjust your worldview, like
Mm-hmm.
change what you think is possible versus what you think is not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had to do a lot of that along the way. It's not, it's not like, and you kind of never stop, right? Your perception
Yeah.
can forever expand or constrict. We have neuroplasticity. We're free to do whatever we want. We're free to believe whatever we want. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that one is not in the book. That was just kind of me spiraling off of, the whole your note about how everyone's got something if you're willing to listen and, be
Mm.
be open.
Yep.
A lot of people have a lot of things that they just keep to themselves. So,
Yep.
so
Absolutely.
Chili says it's good to not let people fuck around and find out with gravity. Oh, that was from, the story with the annulus, the Donkey Kong. Yes. We'll let them fuck around with the Giga Skunk. That's a calculated risk. I'm not I'm not heartless. It was a calculated risk of, letting Beowulf tussle with Grendel. It's also not good to run a slave market. That is correct. That is correct. A quote from Putin, if we can handle this, when asked why he doesn't like the West, he very bluntly said, well, it's simply because the Western leadership is a bunch of satanic pedophiles. So this is this is what we're dealing with, and yet we persist. And I that statement sounds. I mean, that's kind of just. I take that as that's just kind of what he knows, but that's not like a definitive statement. That's not to say it's only the West and it's only right now, because we don't know anything. It could just always have been like that. You know, the uh, the evil people could have always had the reins the entire time.
Yep.
It's hard to prove, because
And
secrecy is kind of their mo.
and honestly, I would say just as red pill, what you need to realize in order to have an unbiased view of things that are beyond your current conception is that souls chose to incarnate on the earth knowing what it was going to be like
Yeah,
to incarnate in that body. So, like, yes, things are bad, but they're not so bad
that you wouldn't
that
come.
those that you wouldn't come.
Yeah,
When you had a view of everything on the earth, you said, "Oh no, I want to sign up for that stuff."
yeah, and it makes perfect sense too, right? Because people buy Dark Souls knowing full well what it is. I mean, most of them do, right? You,
Mm-hmm.
especially at this point,
It's
like everybody knows what Dark Souls is. Like,
it's so true.
if you pay $50 for Dark Souls and you put it into the PlayStation, like, you know what you're doing.
Yep. And I was listening to a beautiful explanation of tarot from a guy who's way more learned than I am in many esoteric subjects. And he said, when he got to the conflict card, he goes, "This is the difficulty." And he goes, "Don't complain. You love it. you love the trauma and you love the drama." And that is like so true, and it echoes what you were saying a conversation or two ago, Sean, where you said everybody's interested in drama. They just pick their own type.
That's
and
right.
Pretend it's not drama.
That's right. That's right.
So true.
Yeah.
My gosh.
They're like, "Oh, I'm not into drama. I just watch ESPN 5 or 6 days a week."
Yeah, no big deal. I could put it down anytime I want.
Where they're like, "Can you believe that the coach of the Steelers is not going to take this deal after getting a divorce and, telling his former employer to fuck off? What is going on with that? Let's gossip for 30 minutes."
You're kidding me. I'm going to pull my hair out over that very important news.
Yes. Yes. Oh, but I don't watch dramas like my girlfriend.
No, nothing like that.
Dramas for the girls. I watch ESPN. I'm not just picking on ESPN. It could and I do it too. It could be X. It could be Game of Thrones. It could be anything. But if you kind of just take away the surface and you look at how you're actually interacting with it, it's just drama. We're all wired that way.
Yep, and things are so multiplicitous. Our thoughts tell us it can only be one way, when if you find yourself in a contrary position to that last statement by Sean, the voice in your head is gonna go,
"Oh,
it's gonna try to cover for you."
Yeah.
It's gonna try to say, well, it's different in my scenario because my drama is this, and that actually comes from the thought system in your head feeling subconscious about itself and needing to defend itself. You can't be fully honest because when you are confusing yourself with the voice in your head, you feel like you need to cover for yourself because the voice in your head goes, "I don't want to think of myself as a drama lover."
That's right. Don't want to and if you don't want to identify with it, then you won't be.
Exactly, because you are in a cage of your own mind where you're the train man. In your own head, whatever you say goes.
That's right.
And that's just the way it is. In your world, if you're listening to thoughts, the thoughts say what's what. And if I disagree with them, I'm a crazy person.
That's right.
I'm a nut job. If I disagree with what the voice in your head tells you, you have a monopoly over all the spaces in your head.
Yeah. It's like if you owned all of the media, like every bit of telecommunication, all one source. You can either listen or you can either tune in or you can tune out. It's a binary.
Exactly. And so these thoughts, when we came down here, these thoughts come preloaded. You ever hear a good public speaker versus a bad public speaker?
Of course.
That character's loadout is the ability to learn how to public speak, or the gift of public speaking.
Yeah.
That's like a D&D character.
High charisma.
That person incarnated into that body with those gifted parents and that gifted ability, or the desire/ability to learn.
Right.
But that is it's like a Mass Effect character going through a personal story. And if you're interested in the drama of your own head, you think this is like a real world and not a scripted video game.
Right. Right.
Like that's
It's
all
a
it
it's a
is.
it's a choices kind of matter RPG.
Yeah, exactly. Choices kind of matter. And see, Sean's so good at saying it delicately. I'm working on that. I don't know how I'm doing.
No, you.
But
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, it's good. Keep going.
Yeah, he's saying it really delicately because at first the choices seem to matter a lot when you're really involved in them. And then once you stopped being so invested in the drama, you realize that you were being taken care of the whole time, but your thoughts were telling you stories about what was going on, and they seemed real.
Yeah. And usually you only kind of get a glimpse of that like in hindsight.
Yes, in hindsight. Well said, Sean. Well said. Exactly that, in hindsight. So, like, if you think back to what you were worrying about 12 years ago, you say, oh, well, that was silly. None of that ever happened. I turned out okay. But you can only see it 12 years later because you're the right amount of detached from the situation.
Right.
And another place you can see this is if you have any friends or family members who are like really honest with you, if they tell you their honest to goodness problems, like what they are really worried about, you will feel sympathy for them because they are hurting, but you will 100% realize, if you're being honest with yourself, that they are fine. They're as fine as any human has ever been.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're stuck in the drama. You're not in their drama, so you can see clearly that everything's fine.
Right.
But because you're stuck in your head, or if you're stuck in your head, I should say, the voice tells you things, and now you're in a different world.
Yeah. You're it's like tuning into a lifetime drama. Now you're
Yes.
this is just what you're watching. This is what you're entertaining.
Yes, exactly. You're tuned in. You're biased. You start to think that happiness is in the world, and my life might start tomorrow if things pop off. If the current drama wraps up. Like, I don't know if anyone else is like a Sopranos lover, but every season, and maybe this is true for other shows, I don't really watch that much TV, so my bad, like if I can't communicate this well. But if you ever watch The Sopranos, the whole season is set up with like Tony's main problem. And from all perspectives and points of view, it looks like if Tony just solves this one problem, his life will be easy and he'll be happy and everything's going to be fine. But so quick after one problem is done, another one pops up. And now it's a different set of circumstances, and Tony's reacting like a weathered boxer in the fight of his life, trying to survive and trying to make it work and push through this next scene of the drama.
And all the while you have the psychologist who's not in his drama world having to just like kind of sit there and observe it, kind of like what your example of like you with a friend or the family member, and they're just trying to like work through it, but they're not in it.
Yes, and pretty soon, as humans do, maybe the therapist therapist doesn't judge Tony, but the therapist's friends and family members and their therapist judges Tony. Like, oh, you don't want to be fucking around with guys like that. They're dangerous. And don't you see that voice that you may recognize when I say the words "they're dangerous" is in your head, talking to you, pretending to be you when you go outside to take out the trash, and there's other people around. This is just an example of what that voice might say, right? But they're different. Be afraid. Like, you know, I mean, this is just an example, but I hope you guys are like hearing
Oh yeah.
what I'm sharing right now. Like, the voice in your head might be different, but it's not you. And if you were to let it go and not pay attention to it, you would be very happy. Very happy.
Amen. So I'm still clapping away some rocks, and I'm gonna toss out another story. I thought I was just gonna do these in order, but it feels more fun, kind of just selecting it like it's a menu. Like, you know what, what tastes good right now, you know? What tastes good? We could go. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, this is. I figured since we were kind of dark with the Nuke Engineers story, I'd go for something a little bit lighter. This one has notes of kind of emulating a little bit of Billy Madison. It's a comedy story, but it's got just a little bit of action. I call it the Fellowship of the Flaming Shit. So, long time ago, I found myself in the small village of Saxon's River, and I had probably a party of, you know, somewhere around 7, 8, 9 people, and you know, we're all partying, carrying on, and the one pattern that I noticed, at least when I was partying, is there would always kind of reach this point where you reach, you know, what, for lack of a better term, what I would call critical mass, where like you've spent enough time getting high and you've spent enough time socializing that people sort of wander. You know, not really bored, but like they just want something different. You know, they want to change the channel. And I reach that point quite often. And so we reached that point in Saxon's River that night. And there's nothing to do in Saxon's River. It's even more minuscule than my hometown. It's really like kind of like a country village. And someone who I didn't even know, it was like a friend of a friend, he suggests, why don't we do the bag of flaming shit from Billy Madison? And I'm just like, you know, I like that movie, and I kind of, you know, admire his gumption because everyone's kind of coming at the group with problems. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And this guy just kind of steps up and he was like, well, here's an idea. You know, why don't we do this? And so I'm like, okay, so this is simple. You know, me being kind of like the facilitator, I was like, you know, they kind of voted on it and that's what they wanted to do. And I was like, well, if that's what you guys want to do, I'll kind of plan it out. And so I said, so first, you know, it's really simple. We just find a bag. And then now we come to step 2, you know, the number 2. Like, who's going to donate to the bag, right? Now this is like guys, girls, you know, in a social situation. It's like, dude, like we all agree that we want to deliver a flaming bag of shit, but like no one actually thought that they were going to be the one to do it. And so it's like, well, what do we do? Do we draw straws? You know, this is what they do in the movies, right? When they're set on you know, a sticky situation like this, like who's going to go out in the blizzard and find firewood, right? And so they're just like, no, drawing straws won't work. They're just like, you know, I can't just shit on command. Like who can do that? It would Like maybe if you have IBS or Crohn's or something, but like we all kind of lacked that debilitation. So it was about that time, I'm taking stock of like what's going on with me. And I mean, obviously this is kind of gross, but I was like, I'm just thinking in my head. I was like, maybe it's because I just really wanted to help. Maybe it's because it was just good timing. But I was like, I think I could donate. And they all kind of like were relieved. They're like, oh, good God, it doesn't have to be me. Like I haven't eaten anything today. So, I go and privately donate to the bag. And then we come up to the next conundrum. I was like, okay, so step 3, someone's got to carry the bag, right? Again, all 8 or 9 people want to do the flaming bag of shit on the doorstep, and Billy Madison, they ring the doorbell, ha ha ha, right? But no one's actually thinking about the steps, who's going to carry what burden. And I said, listen, I'm going to tell you, I donated to the bag, so therefore I think that I should be disqualified from carrying it. I'm not going to do the whole entire quest when like everybody voted that they wanted to do the quest. I said, I'm done. I've done my part. And so they're all talking amongst themselves. And it's at that moment I realized where am I located? I'm located in my house. Are you talking about where were we located? This story took place in Saxons River. I'm in Keene. But so anyway, as I'm observing this conversation, I kind of dip out after kind of disqualifying myself. Oh, no in game. I'm at Dragon Tail. I'm banging rocks. Where are you located? It's like I'm located in such a loaded. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be a dick, but like there's so many different ways to read that, and I picked all the wrong ones. So as I'm observing the council, right, and they're all kind of arguing amongst each other about roles and responsibilities, making their case, I'm like, this is just like that scene halfway through the Fellowship of the Ring. I'm sure probably most, if not all of you, are aware of Fellowship of the Ring, where they're, oh, I can't hardly hear you. Uh-oh. Is it on my end? Is anyone else having issues with sound? Let me check my mixer real quick. On my end, it's showing pretty optimal input as far as my mixer goes. I don't know if you can like turn up the volume on your computer or if you're already at max volume. That's the best I can do is probably just turn up your volume on your end, because the mixer says that I'm like, if I was any louder, I would be overdriven. Actually, it's actually got me -1 decibel to get me into the optimal input. So, yeah, I have you full volume. Yeah, are you on a phone though? Because like sometimes phone speakers are not the best. They wear out over time, like volume wise. Not on a phone. Do you have, if you're on a desktop and you right click the sound thing and you go to mixer and you look at your like, I'm assuming like Google Chrome or whatever browser you're using, make sure that's turned up to 100. Because unless you're using the app, I don't know if you're using the Twitch app or the browser, but if you go, oh, and I just lost my headset, interference. All sorts of technical difficulties, but we will get back to the Fellowship story. A second. Need to turn the power back on. This would be, if I had affiliate, I would like hit the button. Go quick, go to commercial. Go to commercial. So we got the power back on. See, I learned, Drew, that because I live in kind of like a densely populated building and everyone's got a million different Bluetooth things, I have to get a wireless headset that's not Bluetooth, like it shoots off of like a USB receptor, because Bluetooth signals will interfere with other Bluetooths. They're too concentrated in an area because it's kind of like old
Oh,
technology.
okay.
Kind of funny to say, right? Like Bluetooth, such old technology. It's like the cassette. Um, so, but that's what we're on right now. And it's a simple fix. I just have to go into my Bluetooth settings and reconnect. But like other people bouncing signals can sometimes like critical hit your headset and just knock it out.
Hmm.
So I think we're back, and I hope Winter gets a little bit more volume, but not much more I can do on my end. So anyway, back to this. I'm observing my friends and my friends of friends arguing about who's going to carry it, and I'm like, this is like when they're arguing about who's going to carry the ring to Mordor. And it's a similar number of people too, right? I think there was like 8 or 9 people in the fellowship, all of varying
Wow.
different sizes and characteristics, right? And I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Like again, when you can step back and kind of just be a fly on the wall, you can kind of. Some people are just so in it that they don't even realize what they're in. But like, I'll step back and just be like, wow, this is in my own little funny small town way. This is kind of like the Fellowship of the Ring. Um, and so finally we get our ring bearer, and it's so funny. I don't say this to him because I'm like, just trying to enjoy it, right? And the ring bearer ends up being like this kid that kind of like resembles like a Frodo, like kind of small but brave, right? And finally I'm just like, it's playing out, and it makes me wonder, like authors probably base their whimsical stories based off of like actual, to make it really resonate. I think that they probably base the human stuff off of real human behavior that they witness. They just put a different skin on it. So I started to imagine, I was like, I bet Tolkien probably had something to do, because he was in a war, of course, and he went to college and he lived a long life. And so I was like, he was probably in a scenario kind of similar to this, whether it was really serious in the war or very not serious, like a party. He was probably in some kind of group of like 8 or 9 people trying to figure out who was going to carry what burdens for their mission. And that's probably how he came up with it, right? At least it's
Yeah.
just a thought. But I don't know. I felt kind of connected to the story. So moving on, we have our ring bearer, and we've got our wizard, and we've got our soldier, and everything. We got this full party. It really feels like a D&D party. And we have to go, and we have to kind of select the house. And one person decides that it's probably the most fair thing to do to deliver the bag of shit and ignite it on like the richest person's house, because they could probably handle the prank better than say someone that's already had a bad go of it, right? We just decide, well,
Yeah.
it has to be somebody, and we can't interview everybody, right? So we have to pick something kind of superficial and arbitrary. So we just decide, well, let's just find the nicest house and use that one. Um, they can bear the brunt of the joke better than say Kenny from South Park and his parents, right? So
Yeah.
we find this like beautiful mansion, actually, which is weird because again we're in this like rural village, but we just you're looking for something, you'll find it, right? We find this like amazing mansion with like marble columns, like it looks like a palace, right? And that kind of adds to the adventure of it. So now, we're hanging out behind the bush, just like Billy Madison, and now we have to decide, who's going to actually like go and like ignite it, and who's going to ring the doorbell, la da 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 da. So we do some more of that, and we pull it off. It happened really just like the movie, where the bag was ignited, they rung the doorbell, everybody hid behind a bush, an old man came out, kind of screaming, yelling about goddamn kids, da 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 da. And then he actually, just like in the movie, stamped it out with his boots. I mean, I don't recall there being like he might have had a wife in there, might not. I couldn't hear anybody else speaking, but he definitely stamped it out with his boots. Um,
Yeah.
and so we all had a good time out of that. But the aftermath was the final carrier, and this is a cautionary tale, just in case anyone's getting any funny ideas. Because we selected the rich guy, he had a security system with cameras. No one was identified except for the final carrier, the final, step of the quest. He was identified, and he got arrested and prosecuted for arson, which I think is a little heavy-handed. Honestly, it's for sure a crime, but like, I don't think that the kid intended to burn the guy's house down. I also don't think that it was physically impossible, given that his palace was like made out of stone. I don't think that one bag of shit can burn down a house that's made out of stone. But, the court wanted to make an example of him. So he ended up carrying the biggest burden of anybody. So that's a cautionary tale for pranks and things, definitely in this day and age, is that it can be like that. So we dropped a little bit of ore on the ground, but if I just put this stuff away, I will pick it up. Happy little accidents, not a problem. We take the ore over here, and we queue up. We're going to turn the ore into concentrate, and then we can get back to chatting about the fun stuff. Oh, that's a forestry station. I don't need that. I need the smithing station. And we just turn all of this into concentrate, and then we get to talk for probably another 20 minutes. So yeah, that was the Fellowship of the Shit. And my favorite part about it was the moment when I kind of noticed that it was kind of mirroring the council. That was my favorite part. And how, like, really, each person that kind of matched with the different characters of the Fellowship were literally just playing their role, which supports what you were saying about everyone down here is a character, a D&D character, and they're just playing their role. Because it's what comes natural. What comes natural is literally, the character.
Yes. You're exactly right, Sean. Whatever comes natural, which kind of ends up meaning different things for different characters, but it ends up meaning if you're not paying attention, you're just kind of like a tramp. You're just on guardrails because the thoughts think themselves, and like as long as you think it's you, there's no free choice there.
Right.
Because the thoughts do what they're gonna do by themselves. So like you're a tramp.
Yes.
Like you're on wheels because the thoughts come to you, and if you do them, then like everything that you do could be predicted. If you could see someone's thoughts, obviously. You know what I mean?
Right.
Crazy.
Chili says, and see what comes natural boils down to the personality. Exactly. What's natural for you is not natural, not necessarily natural for me, and so on and so forth.
Yes, and that's how we get up being in a screwed up world in our heads, because like we assume people are like us.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
They're not like you.
And that's okay. It's actually more than okay.
Yeah. Their consciousness is like yours, but what's all in the consciousness is all different. It's all different stuff.
Yeah.
different thoughts, different likes, different dislikes, different propensities towards turning some things into games and not others.
Oh shit. James Mo Gaines in the chat. I hope you got to catch. I've told at least several crazy stories. Are you just coming in, or did you actually get to hear one of my crazy stories? Also, Chili says, unless you're an eldritch enigma that can't be classified. See, he took the Enneagram test, and it said not enough. This is the first time I saw this result. Only the last part with the shit. Yeah, that was the Fellowship of the Shit, but we're gonna I had to go with a whimsical story because we were kind of moving in a little bit of a dark direction. But I think now that we've done a comedy, we might shift back into some big action. I think that was a fellowship story. I think we need like a Two Towers type story to follow it up. But yeah, anyway, back to the personality test. Chili did a Enneagram test, and it's first time I've seen a lot of people take the test. I've seen a lot of results, and he got not enough information to solve, so he calls it the Eldritch Enigma. So all right. Now that James is in the chat, we're gonna get a banger. Let's get a banger. We, you're down for some action. Let's go with man. You like PvP? You want to hear a story about a real life duel? You want to hear a story about a real life duel? I got. Oh, this is so topical because Hulk Hogan literally died today. Rest in peace, 71 years old, the Hulkster. I have a story in my book titled "The Gay Hulk Hogan Duel." All right. I don't know if you already heard this one. If you already have, you can just say next. But this is a good PvP duel story. So this was a long time ago. I was we'll say maybe around 21, and I remember it was winter time. It was snowing heavily, and I went out to the bar with oh, Drew, you'll know this. I went out to the bar with a Danny Ray of all sorts, and so we're hanging out, and there's this guy in the bar. I hope you haven't heard this story, James, because I'm kind of tossing this one out for you. There's this guy in the bar that resembles Hulk Hogan, but like extra gay. Because I mean, Hulk Hogan, especially in the '80s, already looked like mildly gay because that was just the '80s. You'd have like the all right, good. He had like the pink scarf that was like a flamingo or whatever. But anyway, this guy was like Liberace gay, but like jacked, handlebar, mustache, bandana, the whole nine yards, right? Like he was definitely going for that look. And he's coming on to my date, and it's almost like, he was doing it in a very obvious way, almost like I got the sense like he's got to be like trying to bait me, right? But like I don't care because he's just kind of like a particular clown shoe, right? And I'm like, it doesn't really matter, like, it's not like he's gonna scoop up my date. Like I don't feel threatened in the least bit, right? So I just kind of sit back and eat popcorn, and I'm just kind of like, this is funny. But then it shifts. After a couple of hours, he goes from like kind of giving her attention to giving me attention, and I'm gonna give you a specific example. Like, he like reaches over on the bar, grabs my hand, and he goes, kind of, touching it, whatever, holding it, and he's like, wow, you got some really nice hands. Now, not to toot my own horn, this is not the first or the last time I'll hear it. I've had, like, you want to see it. It's not a strong hand, but it's an aesthetic hand. I don't know how to put this in front of the camera, but like, I've had people say, like, you could have been a hand model. I would be infinitely frustrated and bored with this, but yeah, he's like ooking out about how like I could be a hand model. I've literally heard this at least a dozen times, but like it just is what it is. It's just a fact. So he's groping my hand. He's like 3 times my size. I mean, he's for an old guy, he's fucking huge. I wonder if he was probably on gear, but because he was like who's that guy with the RFK Jr. with the raspy voice, but like even more bulky. So it was just weird as all get out. It's like, what do you do? Like the bartender's not saying anything, and finally I'm probably like 12 drinks deep at this point, and I'm starting to get a little frustrated. I'm like, either I gotta leave or we gotta do something about this. And at the point that he notices my tone shift to being pretty frustrated, he grabs me by the shirt and he yanks me close, real close. I'm like, he's on my side, like my left side, and I can feel his fucking bristly, yeah, dude, hand picks, right? So So he grabs me and he's so close I can feel his bristly fucking Hulkster handlebar mustache on my ear, and I can feel his breath on my face. And he says in this raspy old man voice, like, he goes, "If you don't make out with me right here, right now, in this bar, we have to go fight about it." Bro, I was at a critical point of frustration as well as intoxication. And at this point, I was ready for a fight, and I didn't hesitate at all. I just said, "Yep, let's go fight about it." And I stood up, and I just walked away from him. I grabbed my coat and my hat and my things. Like I said, it's blizzarding outside. It's probably like 0 degrees, huge snowstorm. And I go outside. This is the bar. For those that are more local, it's the bar PK's in Bellows Falls. I step outside, obviously outside of a bar late at night. There's people smoking, so we got a little bit of an audience, and we square up about 10 paces apart. And what gay Hulk Hogan didn't know was that in those days of me living in Bellows Falls and being like in my early 20s, I was always, I'm not gonna say heavily armed, but I'm gonna say like decently, adequately armed. And wait, we're not. We gotta keep banging this rocks. We can't stop getting XP. We will get some XP. Get back to the story. Get back to the duel. Get back to the duel. All right. So we're squared up 10 paces. I've got my effects on me, and I said, "Listen here, sir." I said, "I'll fight you." And I said, "But since you're bigger than me, I'm gonna have to fight you with this." And at that moment, I drew a sword out of my cane. I had recently acquired a cane sword. It was from Cold Steel, and it was not like one of those things that you like buy from a stupid stoner store. It was like actually bought from a blacksmith, like a real sword. And I've got other stories with that sword. I had it for a long time. I took it on a lot of crazy adventures. But I drew a sword on this guy. Zoom out. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm kind of leaning in because I want to make sure you hear all the details. But yeah, you're right. Let me look at the mixer. Let me look at the mixer. Oh yeah, I'm overdriven if I'm kind of close. Let's get back. Let's get back to a regular position. Thanks, man. All right. So I draw the Cold Steel cane sword. This is some like real ass blade. Oh, zoom out in the game. My bad. Oh yeah. My bad. Sorry, I didn't know what you meant by zoom out. I vaguely remember seeing a cane sword you had. Yep, that's right. You were just a young child when you witnessed my cane sword, but it was not all just for show. I did take it on adventures and had to brandish it at points. So anyway, as soon as I draw the cane sword, yeah. Thanks for the notes, guys. Forgot about the heavy clap there. So I draw the Cold Steel cane sword 10 paces away from the gay Hulk Hogan in the blizzard, and I think this is going to be it, right? There's no way that a gay Hulk Hogan wants a kiss from me so bad that he's willing to run up on my real ass sword, right? I think that that's game over, and I'm watching his face, waiting for him to surrender, and he just kind of nonchalantly gives me this look like, "Is that all you got?" You know, with his face. But what he actually says is, "Well, if you're going to fight me with that, I'm going to fight you with this." And he reaches into his big ass boot, you know, just like a Hulk Hogan would have, like these boots that are almost up to his knee. And he pulls out this fucking Crocodile Dundee style hunting knife, which, you know, it was thicker than my sword, but not as long. I can't speak to the quality, but he's basically got like a heavy dagger versus my rapier, right? And I'm like, oh shit, this is it. I'm gonna have to fight a man to the death with a fucking sword versus dagger and a weight disadvantage. I was like, this is gonna get wild. All the people smoking, like literally just jaw on the ground, like, what is life, dude? These guys are about to have a fucking melee duel to the death in the snow. But here's the plot twist. I responded back, you know, in the form of the duel, and I said, Well, first I put the sword away, and he thought that I was surrendering. He thought that, oh, him putting away the sword is an indication that he's going to surrender. And I said, well, if you're going to fight me with that, I'm going to fight you with this. And I drew the 9mm with the 33 round mag. And now he's squaring up, he's bringing a knife to the gunfight. And, I got a semi-automatic with 33 rounds. That's right. And so he kind of pauses to reassess the situation, run the scouter. And I'm like, how bad you want that kiss, big boy? And I'm just standing there. I'm like, I don't want to do it, but I'm not gonna let a man rape me in public with people watching. That's for sure not gonna happen. Or really, like, not at all, but for sure not in a snowstorm, not in a house, not with a mouse. I do not want your green eggs and ham. I will blast you away because you're a rapist. But I still don't want to do it. But he might make me do it. Yet he wanted cuddles, yeah. So again, this man has no fear whatsoever. That aspect was like